Welcome to the love of books, movies, and happiness. My name's April, and today we're doing a book review on Book 2 of the All Souls series, which started out with a discovery of witches, and now goes into Shadow of Night. Normally I would have the book here in front of me, but I wasn't able to get a physical copy of the book. Instead, I had to use my library's ebook app called Libby to borrow Book 2 and Book 3, the Book of Life, so that I could continue reading what I thought was the trilogy, before finding out that there was other books within the series. So, for Book 2, I'm going to warn you up front, I can't do a review on Book 2 without spoilers from Book 1. So if you haven't read Book 1, or you haven't finished Book 1, but you're curious on whether or not you should read Book 2, yes, you should. Because 2 is where the story really starts to pick up. This is also where it's going to start everything from Book 1 that doesn't make sense, especially about Matthew, will start to make sense. So if you have not read or finished Book 1, I'd stop the video here. Just remember to like, subscribe, and hit the bell to come back to the video at another time after you've caught up to the series. For the rest of us, though, that have read Book 1, we know what's happening in it, and we can now move on to Book 2 to continue the story. Well, let's get into it. So as we know from Book 1, Diana Bishop is a witch who, despite being a natural-born witch with a very, very powerful family, going all the way back to the witch hunting era, where her ancestor Sarah Bishop was murdered for being a witch, and even beyond that, even though they don't know how much further back it goes, Diana doesn't accept or use her abilities when she's thinking about it. Hers is more of a when she's not thinking or she's asleep, then and only then do her abilities come out. And part of this is due to the fact that at a very young age, about 7 or so, 6 or 7, her parents were killed. At their funeral, she heard from other witches that it was because her parents were looking into other types of magic out there that got them killed. So in her mind, witchcraft is what killed them, therefore she wants nothing to do with it. As we know, she was raised by her 2 aunts, Sarah and Sarah's friend, Emily, and being raised by them, they can't understand what her problem is. To them, you can't hide from your abilities. You can't hide from your magic. It's gonna find you at some point. So of course, they're very unhappy, we'll say, over her decision to not practice her magic, to not learn it. In fact, Diana goes so far as to avoid it at all possible cost, even to the point that she goes off to college and ends up going quite a ways out of her way to try to avoid magic, before ironically ending up with a college degree that includes studying alchemy, which, according to her aunts, is mostly magic, but according to Diana is more the science showing that magic isn't real. However, as we know from Book 1, Diana comes across a book that is very important to a lot of different people. And it is this book that starts everything. Well, now we're in to the beginning of Book 2. Diana and Matthew have been trying to see one another for, I would say, about 2 weeks now, 2 to 3 weeks. It's been a very fast relationship. For Matthew, he automatically knows from a vampire point of view that she is his life mate. Therefore, he is already overly protective of her to begin with. For Dianna, she knows that there's a connection to him that she doesn't understand, but she's quite happy to explore. He is attempting to keep things on a more innocent and platonic side of things. Well, Diana's just very much more, you're attracted to me, I'm attracted to you, why aren't we doing anything? Not that she's super forward about it, she just doesn't understand his overall attitude of, let's not do anything. There is still a council who is against them. And this council is made up of the witches, demons, vampires, and others in the magical community who all decided centuries ago that the creatures should not be allowed to mingle with each other because the results could be dangerous. As such, they are opposed to Dianna and Matthew coming together and are continuing to be a very huge problem. Out of desperation to help Dianna find out how to use her magical abilities now that they are awakening, and after the events in the first book towards the end when she had to use them to help herself and rescue others, they are now getting ready to travel back in time, or time walk as they call it. Their main goals in this time walk is to find shelter that gets them away from the council and gives them time to get to know each other better. It is also to find the book again. They're hoping that by going back to when the book first appeared, they can try and get their hands on the Ashmole 762 when it was new, before it was bewitched, and before the pages were missing. Because they still feel that that is going to be the answer to everything that's troubling them right now. And then, of course, they're just trying to find some safety. So, by going back in time, you're probably thinking like I was at first, great, they'll find somewhere safe. Well, that's not the case. You see, England had its own witch hunting issues long before the continents did. And before we had the Salem witch trials, you had English and Scottish witch trials. And unfortunately for Dianna, Matthew, for whatever reason, gets it into his head that the perfect time to time walk back to is the 1500s. The later half of it, I believe it's like 1562, 1552, somewhere around in those years. Which is right when witch trials were starting to happen in England, and honestly is when Dianna will ironically be in more danger than she was in the present time. Of course, Dianna is willing to go along with this simply because she wants to find the book, wants to find the missing pages, and wants a chance to get to know Matthew. But upon going back in time, Dianna quickly realizes, long before Matthew does, that there is a problem with all of this. A modern day woman is very different than an Elizabethan 1500s woman. The way that we talk, the things that we say or do, our overall attitude, is all different than the women back then would have been. So of course, she sticks out like a sore thumb almost immediately. Matthew figured that they would simply go somewhere familiar, be among friends, and there'd be no troubles. Well, I honestly don't think throughout this series that I don't think he thinks too much. I feel like for the first and even the second book, he is quite literally just reacting. He's the one who's doing everything on impulse. Therefore, Dianna has to be the one who actually thinks and tries to plan out everything so that it makes sense. You will, of course, find a whole new batch of people that you have to try to remember and keep track of throughout the second book, as we meet plenty of Matthew's old friends from back then, which, for Dianna the historian, she's in heaven, because she's getting to meet face to face all of these famous people that she's read about. Poets and playwrights, scientists, spies, all of them combined into groups of friends of Matthew's. And she's also finding out secrets of Matthew that he never let on. And she's learning just how big her new family really is becoming. It is a very enjoyable book. It's definitely more fast-paced and quite a bit more action to it. There is a little bit of back and forth where you have them in the past, and it will go to a few scenes throughout of the more modern times. So it is quite a bit to keep track of. So I also recommend this being one that you only make as your only book you're reading. This is not a good tandem read or buddy read or anything like that, because I feel like to try and do that with either of these books would just leave you absolutely confused. I give this book a 4.9 stars out of 5 for a much faster plot, well written, definitely engages your attention and keeps it, and is well researched as well, but is not so bogged down in history that you find yourself bored with it either. It is also a book that by the end of it makes you quite curious and quite anxious for the third book. I will note, however, that it is not all happy moments within this book. As with any good book, it's got its good moments, but it also has a few sad moments and a few more heart-pounding moments for Dianna. So if you enjoyed the first book and you're wanting to know, do they find the Ashmole 762? Do Dianna and Matthew finally get to cement the relationship and actually have time for each other? Just what secrets is Matthew hiding? Well, you're gonna have to read the book to find out. Alright guys, if you enjoyed this one, then please like, subscribe, and hit the bell. And check out the first one, A Discovery of Witches, if you're curious on that one as well. Keep an eye out for the third one. Till next time guys, keep reading.